Thanks, everybody. I'm Ed Walters. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of VLEX, a prospective Cleon. I teach generative AI and big law at Georgetown Law and generative AI and legal practice at University of Chicago. What I'm hoping to do today is to talk about not the technology of generative AI, but the psychology of generative AI. Adopting it in your firm is as much a tech challenge as it is a personality challenge. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some of the ways that we've been able to do this inside of VLEX, working with firms to introduce Vincent into their firms, but you can apply these lessons across AI in general when you are rolling it into your law firm. And I just want to point out that with this kind of technology training, it can be intimidating. It's very important to get the right level of generality. Luckily, I have decades of experience in this. My first tech training was in Louisiana, where I was showing my grandfather how to use a fax machine for the first time. I was very proud of myself. I was about 11 years old, and I'm showing him in my father's law office how fax machines work. And I showed him how to put the paper on the top and how to dial the number and how to press it. He thought the entire thing was miraculous. And then I wanted him to do it for himself. And so I left, and it was 20 or 30 minutes later that he had not come out. I said, something is wrong. So I went in and I said, Grandpa, how's it going? And he said, I think the fax machine is broken. I keep putting the paper in the top, but it keeps coming right out the bottom. That's a kind of a dated joke, like, probably a third of you have never seen a fax machine before, so for the younger people in the audience, trust me, that's really funny. So it's important to find the right level of generality. Okay, this is obviously a very topical time to be thinking about integrating AI into an enterprise, into a firm. We've seen from the 2025 Clio Legal Trends Report, 79% of law firms are using generative AI in some way in their practice. That is very encouraging. On the other hand, we've seen in the last month this MIT study that says that 95% of AI pilots fail. How do we reconcile those numbers? There's a lot of projects that are starting in firms and a large number of them that aren't going. Now look, this MIT study actually has some problems with it. It was a small sample size, it was interviews, but let me just say, it underscores an important truth many of you have already seen, and if you haven't seen it, I hope you don't have to. That is, if you invest nothing in the change management exercise, in the training of your team for generative AI, you will get nothing. You will get out of it exactly what you put into it. We should not imagine that we release generative AI into our firms and magically it is adopted right away. If we take that approach, we will be one of the 95% of these pilots that fail. If you put in minimal effort, you will get minimal results. So I'm talking about change management today. And I think, this is like an organizational behavioral psychology term, but I think anecdotally you have heard parts of this. Talk to a partner at the firm and they say, I'm just glad I'll be retired by any of this becomes important. I'm what you might call computer illiterate, as they used to say. We've heard this again and again, right? We've heard this about using the internet. We've heard this about moving the practice to the cloud. We've heard this about document management systems. So change management is not anything new. We just want to make sure that we are introducing this in an intelligent way with AI. As a profession, we tend to be pretty skeptical, right? That kind of critical thinking makes really good lawyers. It's not great for technology adoption. On the other hand, there is a lot of bullshit and magic about AI right now. That is not, the opposite extreme is not correct. So we want to find a balance between pure skepticism and magical thinking, and this is what we're trying to build inside the culture of our law firms. So I've got 10 tips that we have learned in the process of introducing this over the last couple of years on the VLEX team with Vincent AI. Again, though, I'm not trying to sell you Vincent AI or Clio Work. I'm merely trying to tell you when you introduce AI into your firm, although I hope you're using Clio Work, these tools will be kind of agnostic to what kind of software you are deploying. And maybe you're going to launch Clio Work and an instance of ChatGPT in your firm. These principles will work the same for all of them. So here are 10 things we've learned. And I'll just say, too, I want to give some special credit here to the team at Palace Law, who were good guides of this, Patrick Palace and Jordan Couch, as well as Stradley Ronan. Oh, sorry, let's give Palace Law a little, yeah. And Sarah Hirbett and her team, working with Anuja Gillespie on our team at Stradley Ronan, who actually just wrote an article about this. It appeared in last month's ILTA magazine, and I am borrowing heavily from their work as well. Okay, number one, lead by example. So whatever we're doing at the firm, the team around us will see. If we launch it and don't use it, people will see it and they won't use it. If we launch it and use it, they will see it and use it. It seems very simple, but we should be the change that we wish to see in our firms. There are lots of different roles for people inside of law firms. Sometimes in small firms, individual people will hold several of these roles. This is actually from the Legal Technology Fund Summit, or TLTF, as you sometimes will hear it called. There are resistors, there are cost cutters, there are tool buyers, there are experimenters. You will have to model the behavior that you want to see with your teammates. That might mean that you get out of your comfort zone a little bit. It might mean that you make yourself a little bit vulnerable. But more than anything, recognize that you are a leader in your firm, whether you are the managing partner or the savviest, youngest lawyer on the team, or a member of the team from the allied professionals on the team. Everyone who uses it is going to influence the people around them. This is mindset, okay? And so it will require us to think a little bit differently about this generation of software than we have of other generations of software. So I'm not disparaging the tools. I will say generative AI as a discipline doesn't work perfectly the first time, every time. More than almost any other software, it requires a mindset towards iteration. Try it, modify it, iterate, try again. Especially when you're learning, it's kind of unlikely that you're going to get the prompting right the first time, that you're going to pick the right tool the first time. So let's just build this into the process. Part of our mindset as leaders has got to be that we are prepared to do it wrong the first time and have that be okay, but to be resilient and to persist. Okay, the second thing I want to point out here is that we should understand the tools as we are launching them in the firm. I don't think that there is one tool that is perfect for everything, and I'm not like a Panglossian snake oil salesman to tell you Vincent is the magic tool, Clio Work is going to have everything on day one. I think it's really important to understand what the strengths of the tools are and the weaknesses are. Every tool has its use, and it's important to understand what the right tool is for the job. This is going to be an educational process. We have to learn what tools do what well in order to use them. Okay, the two boogeymen of adoption of AI in firms are security and hallucination. So let's just get these on the table right away. For security, it's very important to have a zero data retention policy. If you're taking notes, this is one to write down. Zero data retention, or ZDR. This is a policy that software developers, it's a contract we actually sign with the foundation models, with OpenAI or Gemini or Anthropic, saying that nothing that is used in the tool is ever used to train. So when you use Vincent AI, the entire session is flushed at the end. There's no model that's being trained on your data. Vincent's not unique in this. The best tools offer ZDR contracts, and I'll just say, make sure to educate yourself and understand that about the tools. The second one, I think, is just hallucinations. Can I ask you as a room, it's a little bit hard with a room this size, but give me a little feedback here. If I'm talking about stuff that you really already know, please just let me know this somehow. I'll ask Jeff Cox, my teammate in the front row here, to be my proxy. He can like flag me down or something if I'm either too nerdy or too basic. I'm going to try and hit right down the middle here. Oh, Jeff is telling me already too nerdy. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, why do large language models and Gen AI tools hallucinate? Well, in part because they're not truth engines. What they're trying to do is predictively figure out what is the most likely next token or word, what the next piece of a word is based on the entire history of everything ever written, okay? They're not trying to find the facts. They're trying to guess what the most likely next thing is, okay? So they're not looking at a database of law. They're just trying to guess what the next token is. One thing that's super dangerous about this is that they're really good at citation norms. Like OpenAI's blue booking is awesome. Like hallucinated cases with perfect citations, it's like the biggest trap you can make for a lawyer, right? Generative AI foundation models like OpenAI, like ChatGPT, like Gemini are not truth engines. They are prediction engines, and that's why they hallucinate. Okay? And I want to draw a very hard line here between those generative AI foundation models and specific legal AI, like Vincent AI, but I'll also put CoCounsel and Lexis Plus AI in that group. Those legal AI engines are designed to really find what the law is. They will consult a legal database that is up to date and authoritative and ground the analysis in that law. Okay, this is a little nerdy, and I'll make it just quick, but it's not super technical. So the process that legal AI uses in a know your tool sort of way is called retrieval augmented generation, sometimes called RAG. It sounds pretty technical. It's actually kind of straightforward. It's three pieces. Piece one, it takes a research task or a drafting task and breaks it into three pieces. The first piece is retrieval. You can think about this like a Westlaw or Lexis or Fastcase or VLEX search. The generative AI engine is looking into a database and pulling authoritative current materials that are relevant to the question. Now, parenthetically, it's using this amazing technology called vector databases that I'm not going to go into today, but it finds conceptually what all of the cases are about, and it creates a map of them all. It's amazing, okay? But it doesn't need to be. I mean, this retrieval step is relatively straightforward, but the idea is the database will retrieve what you would come up with if you did like a couple of days of legal research. If you read all the cases, hundreds or thousands of statutes, you would end up with 16 or 26 or 8. That's what the retrieval step does. It is retrieving from an authoritative database. That is the grounding that makes all of this work. Augmentation is something that happens behind the scenes, but it is instructions and guardrails that are also really important for responsible and ethical AI. Okay, let me give you a couple of examples. One guardrail is when you write the answer, use these materials that we just pulled and nothing else. I don't want Reddit comments. I don't want YouTube threads or 4chan or whatever else you've scraped from the bowels of the web. I only want things that you have pulled from the authoritative database. Another kind of augmented step is use the majority opinion, not the concurrence or the dissent for judicial opinions. Like, ChatGPT doesn't even know how to do this, but retrieval augmented generation systems do. Use the citator. Consider differently judicial opinions that have been overturned or called into question. Okay? And then there's a kind of a step at the end that says, take the question that was asked, take these authoritative materials, follow these guardrails, and then produce an answer that kind of looks like this, in this format that we want. Okay, so retrieval, augmentation, and then the last step is generation, creating that answer. It's incredible at dealing with hallucinations. I just want to flag, there was a research study in the last year from the University of Minnesota and the University of Michigan Law School. Here's what they did. They said, we're going to take a foundation model, in this case, OpenAI's GPT-01, the first kind of good reasoning model. And then we're going to take Vincent AI, and then we're going to take a controlled group of law students and assign a bunch of tasks to them. And here's what they found. They found that the O1 model hallucinated kind of a lot, like 11 times in the tasks that they studied. The second most hallucinations were from the law students, with 4, and then the most hallucination resistant was actually Vincent with 3. Okay, I've got this question. How are law students hallucinating? I actually don't know the answer to this. I want to ask Professor Schwartz. It wasn't like hallucinating, like getting the law wrong. It was actually coming up with a citation to a case that doesn't exist. Bit of a puzzle. But so look, I just want to say that the second thing is know the tech and know the tools. That's kind of why I want to go into the background with you. That's as nerdy as I'm going to get in this presentation, but retrieval augmented generation does a great job of dealing with hallucinations, and zero data retention contracts are bank-grade security. And the largest law firms in the world and the most skeptical small firms in the world, like Patrick Palace at Palace Law, make us ensure that these have the highest security requirements. So that is what we've done here, and that's part of your responsibility when rolling these out, making sure that we have addressed the security and hallucination issues. I want to go back to psychology and mindset for a second. This is an opportunity, I think. These technologies are brand new. That means that there are no experts. Actually, the experts might be bubbling up in this room right now. Like you could be the experts. That means that we should feel free to experiment. No one is going to hold us to like a special standard of AI competence. That means we should try the tools. We should be okay with making some mistakes. We should confirm the answers. We should try to do the best we can. But this is a time where we should all be experimenting. We should try things. We should iterate. I like, one of the things we've seen in law firms is people will take something that they've already done, or a case that's already been decided, or a project that they've worked on, using the kind of old legal research ways or the old drafting ways, and then do it in AI when you already know the answer. This is a great training technique when you're rolling it out, because you'll know, did we get it? Did we miss it? Using something that you're an expert in is a great place to start, or a project that you've just finished. It's a great way to verify that these things work. All right, number 4, we need to rethink training. The way we train our teammates, the way we train ourselves with generative AI, we should learn what the tools can't do. We should learn what they're amazing at by using them. There are firms with 5, 10, 20 lawyers who will say, I'm not going to give you the password to it until you complete the training. And I think that's a pretty good idea. People will be happy to freelance with those passwords without really understanding what they do. And so I'll just say like that training is an important component. It's a role in some firms. Actually, I'll put it differently. It's a role in all firms. It might not be a dedicated employee in every firm, but someone at the firm should be responsible for training the firm to make sure people understand everything we're talking about in the room today. And we should do this training in person. We should do it collaboratively. We should have the people who are being trained run sessions in that collaborative environment. And I've seen in very good firms, they also supplement this with short trainings and on-demand trainings. I want to point out a resource here. This is not a paid endorsement, but Hotshot Legal has this great generative AI certificate program designed for use in firms of any size. It's amazing. If you go to hotshotlegal.com, I think you'll see the generative AI certificate. It's also a nice way for your team to upskill and to show their expertise in this burgeoning field. Last thing I'll say is lean on software companies. And here I'm going to say lean on us, lean on Clio. We would love to help. One thing I really admire from the outside about Clio's team is that they have an amazing customer success function. They're really invested in you and your team getting great at the Clio ecosystem. And now, especially with the Intelligent Legal Work platform, we're going to be here to support you every step of the way. One of the reasons I want to emphasize this training, though, is I'm trying to think how to say this diplomatically. Well, so look, if you don't do the training, it's not like your team isn't using generative AI. I regret to inform you, they already are. They do it all the time. This is sometimes called shadow IT. There is an IT network at your firm that has nothing to do with your IT department. A lot of law firms are getting in trouble because of shadow IT. We need to engage in this training sooner rather than later. Okay, number 4 was rethink training. Number 5 is rethink training. Okay, this I want to go in a different direction with this. One of the most common objections I hear for generative AI is, are we going to have lawyers in the future? Is this all going to be magical robots or software or something? And the answer is no, of course not. We actually have good precedents here. If you look at eDiscovery, that is a great precedent for us. At the time eDiscovery was launched, there were a lot of firms who made a lot of money out of document review. I worked at one of them. My law firm won, I'm going to use that in air quotes, won the ExxonMobil merger for 18 months. 18-wheelers full of boxes pulled up behind our office, and when one of them was unloaded, it would pull away, and an identical 18-wheeler would pull in behind it. We actually rented the entire 13-story office building next to us to hold the boxes. There were 50 associates in my class at that law firm. 0 of them made it to 5th year. Okay, the ExxonMobil merger, document review destroyed them. The firm made a ton of money, and firms like mine were worried if we get rid of document review with eDiscovery tools, how are we ever going to make money again? And what happened? Nothing. There are more lawyers today than there were before eDiscovery software. AI took the worst parts of their jobs, and now people are happier. They like the practice of law better. That's our model, okay? So when I say rethink training, I think we also need to rethink how we train lawyers and law students too, I suppose. The way we've done this in the past, here's the model: brute force work. Okay? I think the idea was if we have young lawyers or law students do mindless legal work over and over again that clients pay for, they will somehow magically become exceptional lawyers, full of good judgment and discernment. Look, it is certainly true that at the end of this process, some lawyers had good judgment and discernment, but it's not because of the brute force work. AI is going to replace the brute force work. It's going to commoditize legal compute, okay? Not legal intelligence, not legal judgment, not legal counseling, but all of the brute force compute stuff that we did is going to be done by software. It already is being done by software. And we should celebrate this in the same way we did with electronic discovery. We should take AI as an opportunity to rethink how we train lawyers and law students. So one thing we can do is think about what the worst parts of our job are and what we can automate, what machines do better. But the opposite side of that coin is, let's focus on the things that are uniquely human. Okay, things like judgment, ethics, counseling, and discernment. A friend of mine calls these soft skills, but I prefer to call them human skills. Let's focus as much as we can on the skills that we want lawyers of 2030 to have. I don't think we've adequately cataloged them. We haven't built the training of lawyers into the law school curriculum, into the hiring curriculum that focus on making them great at these tasks that machines can't do. So I think this invitation is for us to think about what kind of lawyer we want in an age of AI. Call it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and then focus how to do real training on how to develop those skills. All right. Number 6 is kind of a fancy way of saying this. We should reorder supervision of work to the end of the process. What do I mean by this? I sort of mean read the cases, but I mean something slightly differently too. So look, this is a hallucination issue. There has always been a duty under the model rules of professional responsibility to supervise. The signing partner has the responsibility to supervise the lawyers who work under her on that task, under Rule 5.1. She has a responsibility to supervise the allied professionals on the team under Rule 5.3. Those are all fancy ways of saying the buck stops here. The person who signs the pleading is responsible for the supervision. The lead lawyer on the deal is responsible for the work of everyone else on it. And now I keep reading these sad cases where a lawyer has a pleading where there's hallucinated cases, and they say to the judge, I had no idea I had a paralegal work on the research part. My associate did this, it's their fault. Friends, it is not the associate's fault, it's not the paralegal's fault, it is the fault of the person who didn't supervise. Look, for the last 30 years, 50 years, we have just said the supervision is going to happen by the person doing the research. And lawyers, I think, have gotten kind of complacent about it. They don't do anything at the end to confirm the cases, to confirm the interpretation, but they are every bit responsible for that. So yes, read the freaking cases, but also AI is going to invite us to reinvigorate that responsibility of supervision and to do it at the end of the process. And may I say, not just for generative AI. The Schwartz study in Minnesota showed that law students were hallucinating cases too. That could happen inside a firm. Rule 5.1, Rule 5.3 existed before generative AI. If I asked an associate, please write a pleading in this case, and the associate came back and gave it to me, I would never just sign it and submit it to a court. It's my duty to read and supervise and to confirm. That has always existed with human lawyers. We should do it exactly the same way with generative AI. It should be a wake-up call to us that we've been doing this wrong. We've been too complacent. So I'm going to say we should reorder the supervision task, the 5.1, 5.3 responsibility to the end of the process where it has always belonged, but also read the freaking cases, for God's sake. I mean, is there any excuse for anyone to be hallucinating cases in the Clio work era? Friends, there is not. Okay, number 7. I think this is more for mid-size or larger firms, but take the tasks incrementally. Don't have a day-long training. Don't try and do the whole firm at once. Find your champions. Let them do the training first. For larger firms, find a small office and have them go first and then roll it out across the firm. This is one of the learnings from the Stradley-Ronan study and the work that Sarah Hirbit did with Nusha Gillespie. Start small, work incrementally, find your successes, and repeat. And take something that is a very small win, make it better every time until it's a giant win. Last thing I'll say here is when you're doing this, embrace the skeptics. It is so easy to say this person just hates technology, they're a tech phobe, they're a grump. Everyone has a lawyer like that in their firm. It's like a designated role at the firm. We need to embrace them. We need to welcome them into this process. We need to take their objections seriously so that they're not blockers. This is a flip side of that coin, which is find internal champions. Find the people who are going to be the success story, who love technology, but who also love exploration, who love experimentation. There's also a few of these at every firm. Maybe it's you. These champions should be helping you to stamp out these successes and the use cases that work best. And then instead of you saying, here's what I would like for you to do, let your champion say, here is what I just did. Here's a success that I had, something that worked really well. Can we move into the more challenging part of this? I think go incrementally is not super challenging. I do think that there are some mindset things that generative AI is going to invite us to that are somewhat harder. Number one, are we still doing billable hours? I mean, not everyone has done them. Look, people for years have been saying, we should move everything in the world to flat fee. I'm not someone who really believes that. Stop trying to make flat fee happen. It's not going to happen. I don't know. Maybe for some matters it can. But let me just say, for billable hours, this is a challenge. All right? Work that used to take several hours now might take only a couple of minutes. If we are billing everything by the hour, that will be a revenue cut. Right? Does that mean that we have to make everything flat fee? No, but it means that we might want to think differently about the business model of law firms. If I were running a firm today, I would leave ClioCon and find something that I understand really well, that is consistent and usually has the same cost, and I would offer that on a fixed fee or flat fee basis. Not everything on the menu, but something that I know. And by the way, I would look at my costs for it. I would find what the average is in the distribution. I would find any lumpy edge cases that make it weird. And then I would say, exclude the edge cases. For everything that is in that normal distribution, I'm going to offer it at a flat fee. And the flat fee is not going to be 100% of the average. It's going to be 115% of the average. Clients love this. Look, I'm a client of several law firms. I always ask them how much a matter is going to cost. They always say it depends. It drives me crazy. I have to budget for 2026. All right, I'm working with my team. My CFO is actually in the room here. Whenever we put "it depends" in the budget for 2026, it breaks the whole spreadsheet. Your clients can't put "it depends" in their budget. And I'm telling you right now, if you start offering fixed fees or a collar, a high and a low, pricing that is flat based on stages. If it goes all the way to trial, it's one cost, but if it settles, it's a different cost. If you do this, you will make more money and you will have more clients. You don't have to price it below cost. You can price it even above the average. But there's a product market fit unlock here. Clio can enable you to do it. You can see it from your bills. It's going to work. I can tell you, I've worked with a couple of law firms, and when they say, I will give you some element to reduce your risk, I take it every time. I want to point out one other thing, which is that even if your revenue goes down a little bit, you can still make more money. You can have less revenue and higher profits. I said I wasn't going to be nerdy. I'm going to be nerdy for just one more second. This is budget nerdy, though. And this is a spreadsheet, so if you're in the back of the room, maybe I'll just try and illustrate this for you a little bit. I'm going to take a sample matter for a mid-sized firm, a firm that does very well with their billing rates. So here is one matter in a very, very highly simplified way for the purposes of this example. 12.5 partner hours on the project, 55 associate hours on the project. Like many firms, the billing partner looks at the end and says, oh my gosh, this is a lot of money. This is almost $40,000. I'm going to write off some of this associate's time to make this more palatable for the client. And so she writes off $15,000, and the total bill is $24,500. Great. This is a good top-line number for a small project. $24,500 is pretty good. I didn't write off more than I needed to. Success. Well, sort of success. It's success on the top line, because we also need to think about the bottom line. What did it cost us to do this matter, right? So for the back of the room, the partner cost is $1,000 an hour, so there's $12,500 of lawyer cost. The associate cost is $200 an hour. You can't write off the time. You're actually doing the time, so there's $11,000 of associate cost. Nothing for software. I'll just flag that for now. The firm profit on this matter, though, after the write-off, is $1,000, okay? And there were 67, almost 70 hours billed on this. So the profit per hour for the firm on this matter is $14.81. Maybe not such a success. What happens if we use generative AI on the same matter? All right. So imagine for a second we're going to pay $300. That's going to be the allocated cost of AI. Maybe it's the pro rata amount of the cost of Clio work for the partner and the associate at this firm. The associate hours in this case go down from 55 to 18. All right. But the write-off now is zero, because the cost, instead of being $70,000, is more like $25,000. We don't have to write anything off at all. Okay? And in this world, the partner cost is the same, but the associate can go work on other matters. The associate's still making the same amount of money, but the total of these costs is now like $15,000, $16,000 on a total billed amount of $24,000. So the profit on the matter is $8,300, and the profit per hour is $404. Look, which of these firms do you want to run? A firm where you're making $14 an hour, or a firm where you're making $404 an hour? Do I even care what the top line is for the second example? I want the higher profit. And if I price things right, I can attract more clients and do more in the time. This is the lesson of eDiscovery. All right, the last one I want to talk about, I need to speak sotto voce, because I'm going to speak in a somewhat challenging way to my friends at large law firms. There is a problem in large law firms. The number of billable hours is either flat or going down a little bit even before generative AI. The response to this has been to raise rates. The average raise has been about 9 or 10% per year. This is a problem for large law firms. I'm also talking to corporate legal departments who use these law firms, and what they're telling me is, I can't sustain this. Okay, I can't do this forever. I can't keep paying these higher rates. In 2011, there was a Wall Street Journal article about a partner at a law firm who had the temerity to bill $1,000 an hour. What an outrage, the Wall Street Journal said. Can you believe someone had the chutzpah to do this? It was considered to be like a third rail. If you got to that level of billing, clients would lose their minds. Except they didn't. And now the top billing partners at law firms bill at like $3,400 an hour and climbing. I worked on something recently. I was working on a large transaction some of you may have heard about. An associate on that firm was billing $1,800 an hour, like a fifth year. This is unsustainable for large law firms. and it is a gigantic opportunity for mid-size and small firms. For 100 years, American law firms have worked on the Cravath model. It is leverage, it's a pyramid, equity partners at the top arbitrage the work of everyone else at the firm. They take associates who are paid $400 an hour and bill them out at $800 an hour or $1,800 an hour. And the difference goes up to the equity partners. Okay? What happens when a lot of that work, the brute force computation work we talked at the beginning, is done by software? The leverage model breaks. You can see it in this technical diagram because, the big dollar sign is now like kind of a small dollar sign. And all of these big arrows are now like one little arrow. A diamond-shaped law firm is extremely vulnerable. These associates could work at the $404 of profit per hour rate of a Clio law firm. This is a great opportunity also to poach clients, to use AI as a mechanism and a force multiplier to attract bigger and better clients. So look, I just want to say, this is a time of great challenge. It is also a time of great opportunity. This is the Wei Ji moment, right? You guys know this, the Chinese word for crisis is Wei, which is challenge, and Ji, which is opportunity. So we have this great invitation from generative AI. It invites us to rethink how we train our teams, what sorts of lawyers we are trying to build. It invites us to rethink our relationship with our clients and the business model of law firms. One of the great benefits of small firms is that there is not this giant leverage wedge. So we have the opportunity to grow the business and the profits. So look, this is what we've learned over the last couple of years, training law firms using Vincent AI. There's no magic to it. I'm just sharing with you some of the best practices we've seen. I want to thank the team at Palace Law and Stradley Ronan for kind of showing us the way. I hope this is a good guide for you in your law firms. And I just want to open this to some questions as well. I've saved about 15 minutes at the end to make this a conversation. I said it myself, there are no experts, so I am certainly no expert. With 2 years of experience under my belt, I'm a novice as much as anyone else. But the things that we've seen good people do in these training programs, I want to share with you to accelerate your learning curve, and then let's just have a conversation for the next 15 minutes about what that looks like for you. Thank you. As a law professor, I will take the prerogative to cold call. I generally start calling on people from the back. But if you do have questions about this, this is a great time for us to discuss them together. I can't see. Is this Greg Lambert?
Yes, it is.
I revoke the offer to take questions.
So you want to have the conversation. So I wanted to point out one thing that I think I've come to a realization on when it comes to why lawyers don't read the effing cases.
Yes.
And one thing that contributed to that I think is that you and me, since 1999 to about 2022, had set up research systems that allowed them to take shortcuts to get to the information quicker, to read snippets of the cases, and rely upon the technology to make sure that what we're using is good law. That got turned on its head, but I don't think we trained the attorneys to understand the difference between using Gen AI to do legal research versus doing Boolean searching or natural language searching and using the more traditional resources. And Am I wrong in that, or do you think that's contributing to the style of research that creates these hallucinations that make it through?
Awesome. Well, a couple of things. First, because we're friends, I want to commend you on the effort to convert that comment into a question. You really nailed the dismount. And yes, you're absolutely right, of course. I want to point out, Angel Faust, who's in the room here, did something with Vincent early on that I didn't understand and came to understand. The first time he showed me Vincent, half the screen, the whole right side, was primary sources, and the left-hand side was the answer. And I said, that's not what I've seen from generative AI. You just get the answer. Okay, but he said, and his brother Luis Faust, who's also here, said, no, this transparency is really important. If we're going to use retrieval augmented generation and retrieve these real sources and ground the answers in real law, then we should show the law. And the other thing they did was to empower users to deselect some of those sources. Like if one of them is overturned, you can see this from the citator, you can remove it and say, don't use this one to make the answer. Or I think that this treatise isn't exactly right. This may have been Robin Chesterman, who's also here. They gave you the ability to say, I want to modify this list and create the answer out of things that I custom curate. So it's transparency and control, which are not typically the hallmarks of generative AI. Normally it's obscurity and no control, right? But so to Greg's point, in the old world, we would sort the search results. We would read them. We would apply a citator to them. And I think it's really important to bring these into the generative AI era as well. We've tried to do this with design. And by design, I don't mean which typefaces we used. I mean the design of the application, how it works, not how it looks. And I didn't understand it when we first launched it, but the choices that Angel and Robin and the team made to create that transparency by design, fundamental. It is one of the most important parts of generative AI, and they got it exactly right from the very start. Yes, ma'am, in the back. Yes. I think they're bringing a mic around.
Thank you so much. Excellent presentation. I think we talked about this with ethics on the generative with the bar and maybe retraining in law school and how to really look at the whole picture and remodel things. But kind of on his point, I'm really stuck with how do the students hallucinate? So do you attribute that to pollution of the databases or just this laziness with using these other underground sources?
Are you asking how the law students hallucinated?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
This is just a guess. I mean, I really don't know the answer to this, but I'm just going to offer the guess that they got the assignment and they were supposed to use typical research sources, incumbents in this field, which everyone hates. The incumbents for legal research have the most punchable faces in legal tech. So my guess is that they went and used ChatGPT. But that's just a guess. Okay, there was a...
We'll take one from the virtual audience.
Oh, awesome. For those of you watching at home, Greg Lambert is sitting right back here. You couldn't see him. You're welcome.
We'll take one from Robert. His question is, when Clio Work or Draft AI think and recommend, are they using Vincent? Also, what is Vincent's underlying LLM, and does it have a shelf life?
Wow, awesome. 3 questions in one. Yes, many of the functions inside of Clio Work will use Vincent as a foundation. Not all of them. There are also a couple of Clio AI agents that are outside of Vincent as well. Let's see, the second question is, what is the foundation model that we're using? So we are model agnostic, another choice made by Angel and Robin. So if, for example, one of the foundation models fires its CEO for no reason, or for a good reason, and the entire LLM goes kaflooey, or if one of them is sued out of existence for copyright, we can switch and use a different one. And the team is constantly evaluating the frontline models, the newest ones, to figure out which tasks they're good for. I don't think it's a big secret. We currently use the OpenAI models and the Anthropic models. I don't think we're using any of the Gemini models. Maybe we are, Robin? Yeah, so a little bit, I'm told. So we are constantly swapping out the best for each task. We're not like an OpenAI shop. We're not an Anthropic shop. We're going to use the foundation model that works the best. And the good news is, as they improve, the functionality of Vincent and Clio work improves also. So that's a real interesting opportunity. And do they have a shelf life? No, because we're constantly refreshing them. Okay, let's see. I'm going to trust you to pick the right person from who's got their hands up.
Hi there, Ed, Natasha. So I do want to talk a little bit nerdy about the zero data retention concept when selecting tools. And I know this much, but I've heard there's confidentiality of what you feed the system, confidentiality of your prompts themselves, and then this idea of synthetic data.
Yeah.
So if we look at, say, ABA model rules, what
1.6?
level? Yeah, what level do we as law firms need to be looking for when we're purchasing tools?
Awesome. I would say for all of them. By the way, this is why Natasha's...
And is that something that is available on the market? Like, do we know that the big players in the research market all have these or don't have these or somewhere in between?
Awesome. Thank you for the question, Natasha. This is why she's a Reisman Award winner. Okay, so I would say that for the zero data retention, we should insist on that for everything. Not just the queries, not just the answers, but for all of it. I don't want judicial opinions from Vincent being used to train OpenAI. And so it's very important to me that your data and our data are zero data retention. And so I think that's really important. You can find all of the security certifications if you want to verify this with your firm at trust.vlex.com. This will, I'm sure, port over to Clio. The highest security certifications are ISO 27001 and SOC 2 Type 2. Clio is certified for both. It turned all of my hair gray. Our team labored mightily to get these security certifications, not because we weren't actually meeting the security, we were the whole time, but just going through the process is extremely, excruciatingly difficult. Our team did an amazing job to kind of get those certifications. But I think we need to be very careful with client confidences. Under Rule 1.6 of the model rules, it's an obligation of ours. And I think just as a steward of our clients' data, we should always make sure that it's not being used to train the models. And this is the big problem with the kind of general ChatGPT open foundation models. Beautiful, capable, really good at stuff. And when it's free, you all know you are the product. And one of the ways they make them free is every question, every answer is being used to train something that comes after. And so the legal AI tools don't do that. They sign these very expensive agreements to make sure that your data and your client's data isn't used to train a model. I can't vouch for Thomson Reuters and Lexis. I'm pretty sure they take the same approach, but I can tell you our approach is that we are not in the business of training these models. We paid through the nose for these zero data retention agreements. We didn't have to, we chose to. It was the right architectural choice and the right responsible choice. We care about it too. By the way, while we're setting up the last question maybe, I don't know who's got the mic, but while we're getting to the last question, let me just say the first searches on Vincent AI were insanely expensive. Like we had to pay OpenAI to use the early GPT-4 models and things like that. Each one of these searches could cost like $200. If you ran like a 50-state survey, which is built into Vincent, it could cost tens of thousands of dollars because of the zero data retention agreements that we signed. It made it stupidly expensive, but delightfully secure. Last question in the back.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to ask kind of a general AI question, and at the risk of offending any of our sponsors, it seems like all these companies and products that are in the same space are selling the exact same product. And without setting up a consult and doing a free 30-day trial, do you have any recommendations on how to kind of sift through? Because frankly, it seems like all of their advertisements are also written by the same AI, so.
As a large language model, I don't have any opinion about, no. I'm not taking the bait on that one. All I would say is everything that I said in here about being a discerning customer of these tools, about understanding what they do and what they don't do, applies to your evaluation of these products. You want to make sure that they are bank grade secure. You want to make sure that there's something more than just passing a prompt through to a foundation model. You want to make sure that they are as hallucination resistant as possible. And you want to make sure that you understand what they're capable of. I don't know. I don't know how this shakes out as the foundation models get better and better, how so-called thin wrapper products will sustain. I will tell you that it took 25 years of VLEX's time and 25 years of Fastcase's time to build the data pipelines, not one pipeline, like 5,000 pipelines, to update the judicial opinions and statutes and regulations and court rules every day. It was insanely expensive to build from scratch the CERT Citator. We reviewed by hand more than 750,000 citations. We're adding 200,000 documents to the VLEX database every day. Data is not trivial. It is the grounding of these tools. It's what makes them special and powerful. It's always been a differentiator for Vincent. I'm super proud of what our team has built. And I hope that what I've offered today will help you to be successful in rolling it out in your firms. Thank you.